Welcome everybody to this Q&A event for the launch of Jeff Flesch's debut poetry collection, Nature Speaks of Love and Sorrow. Jeff, are you okay? I've just introduced Jeff is here with us over in Oregon, am I correct?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm calling in from the UK and we are here to talk about Jeff's new book. Are you okay with me showing the proof copy, Jeff?
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Zoom, we have here the proof copy of the book, which is ready to go to press. It's a very exciting time. So we're going to be talking about this book. We're going to have a little discussion about the whole process of publishing a book from concept to execution. I'm going to hand over to Jeff to say a few words and to give us the first poetry reading from his collection. And I'll just welcome Bella. It's good to have you here as well. Thank you for joining us. It's over to you.
Oh, is it me? Okay. Good morning. Good morning here. Good evening. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for being here today. It means a lot to me that you're here. So, and I know each of you from different places and spaces, whether it's WordPress, Twitter, Instagram, or some other forum, and you all mean something special to me. So thank you. Thank you very much. So the first poem I'll read today is called Golden Sunshine. Living, loving, and tired with sunburned skin, I remember the loss at the end of the twine herein. Grasping and settling back, I relax, breathing into the confusion while watching daisies dance around my ankles. I resonate in the weave around the inside as I let go of the last time we said goodbye and breathe into the summer's golden sunshine. So that is Golden Sunshine.
Thank you for reading. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So good to hear these poems read aloud. I've seen them on paper, become familiar with them, but it just brings a new level to them. It's great to hear you read. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
So another thing that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. You please start with your part.
I can't remember. It's okay.
Hi, Meryl. Welcome.
Got it.
Jeff's going to start by talking about the concept of the book, how he came up with it, and the steps he took prior to sending a manuscript to me when we started the publication process.
Yeah. So I had the first idea for a book, a poetry book, spring of 2021. And I remember writing it in my kitchen on my whiteboard as part of who I am. And I wrote it down. It was a different name at that time. And I just contemplated that and knowing that that was a pure concept for me. And so the distinction for me was how to make that practical, how to do that when I have no idea how. I know now some, but how that works in publishing for a poetry book. I mean, the only times I've been published were in the academy, and that's a totally different thing. And so what was important for me, because I am very busy with work, was to figure out how to make it practical, right? And so for me, the distinction I created was to write every day. And I had at that time only been writing poetry for probably like 9 months or 10 months or something like that. And all through the blog on WordPress, Twitter, I actually didn't join until, not actively, until I think late last summer or early fall. And so I wrote every day. I started to write every day. And then I started to create distinctions for me in my writing, meaning that I have like this is really pragmatic, but I have a document for WordPress, and then I have a document for Twitter, and then I have a document for Instagram, so that I could create distinctions in my mind and practically of where those poems would fall. And as I started to contemplate the book, I then created a document for the book and had it titled, and I started to put poems in there. And then I got, like, I don't know, probably 40 or so poems, and was like, okay, maybe this can happen. Let's take a look at publishing. How does that work? And I started to look and got kind of frightened because there's the information, there's not a lot, I feel like, and a lot of places wanted to charge like all kinds of money. And so I was coming from a business background and working in the college system here in the United States. I was confused about why I would pay like, $5,000, for example. And I was like, what's that? I don't understand what's happening. And so I just kind of stopped. I kept contemplating, but stopped. And then I found through Ingrid, that Ingrid had a new venture in experiments in fiction. And I sent a message and asked a simple question. And then we started to have dialogue. And it was prior to that process starting where the actual title of the book changed, because it started to get more real. And actually those poems that I wrote, just to show you like for me, how it works for me creatively, none of those are in the book. So all of those poems were sort of in a different construct. And then I started to write again, as Ingrid and I started to have dialogue about that possibility of publishing with the experiments in fiction. And then from there, Ingrid might have some things to say about publishing, but for me, that was the process. And really it was to write every day, to write every single day. And even when it was hard, meaning there wasn't a lot of time or things weren't coming, and I would still put something in there. And for me, that habituation was really important. So that's what happened with Nature Speaks in Love and Sorrow. It started as something completely different. And then it arose later in the year last year as Ingrid and I started having conversations. So that's what happened.
Thank you, Jeff. It's really interesting to hear the journey of the book and before it reached me in manuscript form. As a publisher, well, I published, my first venture was an anthology, the Anthropocene Hymnal, which some of you might be familiar with. I did that back in July of last year. So first published an anthology, really enjoyed that. I learn as I go, I was new to the publishing game then, so I'm still in the process of learning. It's been quite an organic process. I've just learned something new with every project I've worked on. I published a short volume of my own poems under the EIF banner early this year. And then I was honored to have Gabriella Marie Milton approach me about doing Moon's Eye Healed. I'd already launched my publishing business by then, and I think was already in conversation with Jeff about publishing his solo collection. I have other clients interested as well. It was so nice that people came to me very quickly wanting to publish a book. I think I'm doing something a bit different there's lots of publishers out there who will help you to publish your book and take your money and give you 1,000 books that you don't know what to do with. Yes, there's plenty of people doing that, but I want to do something far more bespoke, more tailored to what the individual author wants. It's people I know through blogging or through Twitter. So there's a personal level of involvement in producing the book. It's not just, something, I'm going to make money off this person and produce a book. It's something I care about. And I hope that's come through for Jeff as we've gone through the publication process. I love the process of creating a book. I was just finishing up all the excitement from Wounds I Healed. I know a lot of you here are in Wounds I Healed. So I was saying to Jeff, I needed a few weeks after that just to decompress, because it's a big thing bringing a book out, especially something the size of Wounds I Healed, and so much was involved in that. It was a huge success. I'm really pleased. But then I was ready to get back to work again, so I received Jeff's manuscript, and then we worked on editing the poems and just going through, making sure everything flowed and tightening up everything, so it was perfect for the published book, which was a process we both enjoyed. It was interesting to do that. And after that, comes my hard work. Once every like I is dotted and T is crossed, then I have the manuscripts, and I have to sort of, I feel like it's almost, there's something lovely about the creative process, like you're weaving together this book, you know, you've got to make sure all the text's in the right place, and the typesetting has to be right, and the fonts have to be right. And I enjoy that part of it. It's almost like a craft sort of element to it. And putting the cover together, Jeff provided me with a photo that he wanted to use, and then we looked at some designs and fine-tuned those. I had some great input from my creative team, which big thanks for that. And we've now got to the point where, yeah, once you've made the book, you have an online proof, and you have to check that for any errors or anything that's missing. Then you can order a printed proof, and we both went through the printed copy of the book, made sure anything that needed to be tweaked was done. Another proof has come through, and now it's all ready to publish. So I love it when it gets to this point and all the hard work's done, and just the excitement of the launch. There's a lot of promotion work to do, which Jeff has been brilliant on that, promoting his own work. He's really taught me a lot about that as well, and what you can do to create a buzz around the launch. And he's done lots of poetry readings, lots of blog posts, and had some great engagement there, lots of people interested in the book already. So I think it's going to do very well when it's launched on Thursday. So we're gonna now, it's now time, just looking at my schedule here. So would you like, I'm going to throw this open for questions, if anyone's got questions about bringing a book from concept to publication.
Well, if I may just say that I am also a client of Ingrid, and very excited about it, but very frozen in time and space since I have so little of it. So, and I don't know if that's all. I mean, I do know that's really what's up, but I think there's a big, big underlying, I'm not sure, I said this once, but there is, I generally can do whatever it is I want to do, and that can be 10 things at a time. Well, I'm juggling about 10 now, so I don't think I have an 11th. But I think there's this underlying fear of, is this going to be the right thing? What about this? And how am I going to weave this? Or that story's been told. So lots of judgment, lots of fear around that. And even though I have part of my book written and part of pieces, it's sort of like a puzzle, right? And you've got all these places and you're not sure how they're ever going to come together. So I did make a date, and I have a launch for next year. So I will be scared then too, and not sure how. So I'm excited to hear all of what you guys have to share, and anything anybody else has to share about their concept of where they are, if they're working on a book as well.
I completely agree. I would love to hear from everybody if they, are in concept phase, just finished publication. I know some of you have. No pressure, I promise. I just want to say that resonates with me, Cindy, in regard to the fear component. And I think that's just really normal for every human being to have that. Meaning, one of the first things I said to Ingrid when we jumped on this call a little bit before 9 was, she asked me how I'm doing. I think you asked that, Ingrid. Anyway, I said, well, I'm really anxious and super excited. And that's just really normal. And I don't see that stopping through Thursday anyway.
Make sure you enjoy it. This is important.
Yes, I enjoy it tremendously. Is the thing about it, is that I understand what's happening within me. And so when I use the concept anxiousness, I don't mean it negatively. I mean it in a positive framework, because I know what's happening, and it's okay to be anxious because I'm growing. So I know I'm growing each day with each new experience. And that's just really normal and quite beautiful, actually. So that's my take on that.
Brilliant. Yeah, there should be some anxiety because it's something you care about, but it's a sort of nervous energy, I would call it.
Mhm.
From my perspective, that's normally how I feel in the run up to a launch.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything they would like to add or ask?
No, Ingrid's working on my book right now. It's coming out in October. And I can relate to what everybody said. I'm really excited. I'm having more fun than worry, actually.
Yeah.
And so I'm, just be open to what comes your way. Like there are opportunities on Twitter to meet people who will interview you. Put yourself out there. Your poems don't walk. You have to really be able to do some self-promotion for
Yeah.
your book, for your baby. I remember when I sent the book to Ingrid, I felt like I'd sent my kid off to college or something. I was like, oh my God, is it really ready?
Mm.
And I'm sure it's flawed, but I can't, I'm tired of looking at it. I need new eyes. So I think if I worry about anything, is it really ready?
Yeah.
But I feel like, the story's told. I felt like, so these are all normal feelings, but just focus on the joy, the moment, and just every day look for opportunities to promote your book and share your news, share what you're doing, and people will come, connections will come.
Mm.
It's really fun. So I'm having fun with it and looking forward. I'm trying to learn from Jeff how he's doing it, and how Ingrid's doing all these rollouts, and
Um,
it's been a lot of fun. So try to focus on that. It's really fun,
mhm.
Yeah.
And I like it that Ingrid has a company that is very friendly and compassionate and personable. Because I wrote a textbook a few years ago, and the editors came and went. It was very hard to have a thread of anything. They didn't. I was really way too busy to go out and promote my book at all these I'd have to pay for conferences. I didn't have the money, and they just were interested in the money, but this is a whole different experience.
No,
Where you feel like when you join on with Ingrid, you're with a family, you're with
I'm glad you feel that way,
people who
Barbara.
are really nice.
Absolutely.
You have to
Yeah.
babysit sometimes too. Babysitting is part of it. No.
Yeah, I'll put the kids on a plane. No.
Can I ask before you go on, what is the title of your book? What is your book about?
Three Penny Memories, a poetic memoir. So it's about me and my mom. I was her primary caregiver as she was suffering from Alzheimer's.
Nice.
And my uncle, I don't want to take Jeff's time, but
It's all okay.
the book was inspired. I had been working on all these poems since she died, and I just didn't feel like I had anything that came together. And I was just thinking how Jeff's came together all of a sudden. And that's sort of what happened with my book. All of a sudden I saw I have a ton of poems here.
Mm.
And so I looked for a way to contain them. And when I took a memoir writing class, and one thing is, what are the triggers? So the trigger was my uncle. When I told my uncle my mom was moving here to be with me, he said, Barbara, do you love your mother? Do you love her? And I went, what? And so this whole book is about my doubting my love for my mother, because why would he ask that? And how can I help her and still wonder if I love her and if she really loves me and all that? So it's kind of like a long love poem.
Aw.
Yeah. And so the book's in 3 parts, where I look at our lives together while I was growing up, and then that I call light, and then dust is her when she moved here and she was sort of disintegrating, and then echo when she was in her last part of
Wow.
life. And there are a lot of entanglements we had that I look at in the book, a lot of mother wound stuff, a lot of strange parallels because of the differences in our lives. Anyway, I'll probably have my Q&A later. I don't want to take Jeff's time.
We'll hear more then.
I'm really pleased you're enjoying the process. That makes me happy.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. And so, yeah, just enjoy the process.
Mhm.
And Ingrid is very generous. with her time and promotions, and she cares, so that's the important thing.
Thank you, Barbara. Jeff, would you like to talk a bit about the kind of the content of your book? This is how you structured it. Anything?
Let's see, the content. Well, the content, you mean as far as the content of the poems?
Themes behind it.
Oh, sure.
Because
Yeah,
it's
so
nature poetry, but it's also about personal growth.
yes.
Those two threads running through it.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, so let's see. So when I first started to write poetry, I was doing well, I've been doing self-inquiry for some time. And so what that concept means to me is just looking within and getting clear about my emotional state as a human being. It's not something I was taught to do as a child, which is fine. It's all okay. It's something I've learned in the last 5 years. And so as poetry started to come out of me, it would form around that in some way, and a lot of connections with nature, because I literally see through my eyes connections with nature and us as human beings. And so if you've read my poetry, you know that most of it is in that realm. And so as I started to write more formally for Nature Speaks of Love and Sorrow, which was, I don't know, in the fall of last year, I just, for me, what happens is something comes up, within me, a line or 2 lines, and I will literally write it down on a Post-it. I mean, that's just like my process. I'll write it down and then see later, because I'll be probably going somewhere. That's what happens. And then I'll see later, what's left there. What is that thread that I've seen, whether it's a cloud in the sky or it's a reminiscence of the ocean. I love the ocean, or whatever, the breeze, whatever it might be. And then I go from there. And then it comes out how it comes out. And one thing I've loved so much about the process of working with Ingrid is through that editing phase, which, to be clear, is not typically my favorite part of things. That's just me as a writer. Is that it was so much fun to have another set of eyes on poetry. In the academy, I had tons of that. And it was also nice then, after I learned that it was okay, right? Because at first you think, oh my God, why are they making my whole paper red? I'm confused. But that's normal. And when Ingrid and I got into conversation around the book, what I can say is that Ingrid showed me things that have made me a better writer. And I appreciate her immensely for that. There's not enough words that I could use to say how much that meant to me as a writer and as a human being. And so, yes, there's pain and trauma in the book. There's sorrow in the book. There's also great joy, and great happiness, if that's a concept that works okay. Because for me, what lives inside of pain and sorrow is already the seed of joy. When we work through those things that we have within us that are trauma from childhood or from some other time in our life, we're already working through that into a space of joy. And so all of the poems in some way mean something to me, and are I would say mostly accounts of something that's within, well, they're all within me, but sometimes I will go a little bit further with a concept because it means something to me. So that's how that happened for me. That's a good question. I didn't get it at first. Thank you, Ingrid, for helping me.
Yeah, that's a really insight into the book. And
Yeah,
that means a lot to me, your comments there. Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
So with that, I think we should have another reading from the book. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the last one that I selected is Apples Intoned. I want to find a way to dive into your arms while cherries grow fingers of discord, and you make hope out of red apples intoned with love, growing on vines like a sun waiting for its time to shine. Flowers bearing fruit of pain and hope both linger along my spine as I enter a new aspect of space and time. And that is Apples Intoned from Nature Speaks of Love and Sorrow.
Beautiful, Jeff. Some wonderful imagery there.
Thank you.
Read it very well. That's good. Very good to hear. Thank you. So
You're
the
welcome.
next part of our chat is a question and answer about the book itself, rather than the whole publication process. Just if there's anything specific anybody would like to ask about the book, please feel free to ask.
Jeff, how did you organize your poems? Because a lot of people have trouble with that when they're trying to write a poetry book. They think, what's a logical way for me to put the poems together?
That's a fantastic question that honestly, Barbara, I didn't spend a lot of time doing anything with that. They came out as they came out, and then Ingrid and I worked through them. I really didn't spend a lot of time with how they were organized. I think we might have moved a few things around for space, but they just were there.
Okay.
So that's what happened.
The way
Yeah,
that-
so probably because the theme is so consistent.
Maybe.
Yeah, that you didn't need to create divisions or.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think the
Thank
poems
you.
sort of chime with one another, so it doesn't need to be like a narrative.
Yeah.
Different ways to structure a book, and it is something I'm interested in, and it's part of the process I enjoy. But with these, they kind of chime, and there's images which carry through the poems, which holds the whole collection together, I think, for me, from my perspective. Anybody
Hey
else?
Jeff, hi
Hi, Nick.
there. Hey,
Hi.
congratulations on the forthcoming and the bringing together of it's a colossal piece of work, really. To sort of start from, I can see. I'm assuming it's one of your whiteboards in the background, and there's sort of like an army of markers waiting to go into battle somewhere.
Yeah, that's it.
I find it astonishing when sort of how accomplished you are as a writer, and I sort of hear this all the time from people when people say, "Oh, I've only been writing a very short period. I've only been writing, since last week or 5 years ago." Or I find that astonishing. So perhaps I think where I'm going with that is I'm interested in the creative process itself, the creative process, and perhaps this is where I sort of find my interest, really. You mentioned earlier, I like the idea that you suggested to yourself, right, how am I going to accomplish this? Or how am I going to begin this? You begin from a whiteboard to this coming next few days to a book. And what really struck me there were two things, really, Jeff. One, that you decided the way forward for yourself was to write every day. So I thought, okay, this is good going. And the second thing, and I think this is my thing, really, that we often start off with a project in mind. This is what I want to do. We've spent all that time thinking about it, and it's come to the fore of our heads. Yeah, this is what I want to do. So we begin it, and then over a period of time, we find that idea transforms into something else, or it sort of slips away and it's sort of taken over by another idea. And this sort of depth of sort of creative process, that's what I find interesting. There's no question there. I know I'm trying to hook a kind of question mark on the end of that, but there is none.
That's okay. I resonate perfectly with everything you've said, Nick. Thank you for that. I agree with everything you've stated, and I think that for me, letting go of what was to be inside of a new concept and new thing that was burgeoning within me, meaning, like I had mentioned, I put it on the whiteboard, and I do have whiteboards everywhere. So in front of me, are two walls in my office that are painted with white wall paint. So yes, just wanted to say that. So is then letting go of that idea for something else to come, and all those poems too. And I just, realized that, and it's taken forever for me to work through to this space. I mean, if this would be we wouldn't be able to have this conversation 3 years ago, just so I'm clear with myself. I would have held on to it, and maybe forced something instead of what was coming up from within me from the creative process. And so that is a product of, self-inquiry and development over time. But the creative process is fantastic. I mean, I did a million whiteboards while Ingrid and I were doing our editing, and even well prior to that, mapping out, okay, how is this going to flow in time? And, what are some of the goals that I have, and what are my due dates to get back to Ingrid? And so we can, and Ingrid is amazing in all of that actual pragmatic work that has to happen to make a book come out, because, well, concept is one thing, but practice is something completely different. And so it was just so much fun. And I appreciate the acknowledgement about the creative process, because it is near to dear in my heart. I work in a very creative space, meaning that we're a very creative team and put out creative products all the time. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you. I'm fascinated by the creative process of different writers, because I've talked to lots of different people about this, and everybody has a different process. It's really interesting to me. No two writers work in exactly the same way, I don't think. But it's something that really interests me.
Yeah.
To hear that. Any more questions or comments? Would you like to read? We've got a bit more time. Would you like to read one more poem, Jeff? 2 doesn't feel like a very...
Of course.
3. I don't know. 3 is a magic number, isn't it? So
that's fine. Yeah. Let me see here. Okay, I'll read. How fun. I haven't practiced this one. That's okay. Ready? Okay, so this is called Soft and Cherished. I take my time and often confide in my heart of hearts, a pure delight, finding the center of a love both soft and cherished, as apples bow trees. Know that you always have been true to me, while lingering in the shade took shape. You always compensate and show me the truth behind the curtain of the love we did create. So that was Soft and Cherished.
thank you so much, Jeff.
Mhm.
Another of your poems. So everybody has had a taster of the book, which I'm just going to add. It's out on Thursday. We have some more promotional activities taking place in the week ahead. So keep an eye on our blogs or Twitter or Instagram or all 3 to know more. I'm also putting videos on YouTube. Jeff's poetry readings are all there. I'm going to add the video of this meeting if I can work out the technology, which won't be too hard. So if you check back on the blog, maybe tomorrow I'll put the video up. And I want to thank you all again for coming and supporting Jeff with his creative venture. Oh, Cindy's got Cindy, please.
I have a question and a comment. So the question would be, I do get the concept of your writing often from the pain and then the sorrow, the seed of joy, and how you pull that together. I also, from some of your writings, your recaps, I know you're divorced, you talk about that, and you've talked about your kids. And so often you sound like you have, this is none of my business, by the way, but you sound like there's like this love that bursts through of a new love. And I know some of us in your writing have said, ooh, wonder what's going on. So I'm just curious as to, are these new loves, so you don't have to tell us, or maybe memories, maybe memories of maybe a love that you had and your heart, or you envision? Just a question.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you for asking that, Cindy. They are not about a specific person really ever. I have written, I'll say more about that as far as love is concerned, I will. I have written specific poetry about like my kids, for example, and that's just for me. I've not published any of that. And I don't think that I would publish that because it's too personal, you know. But when the love part of my poetry is about the love I have for being a human being and for seeing all of you on this call today and the resonance I have with myself and each of you as a human being for just exactly as you are today, just like that. And this team that I work on and this institution and in nature, you know, because for me, there's no distinction between the two. They are the same. They really are in my heart and my mind. I don't see a flower and think, well, that's a flower and that's a building. To me, they're the same thing. They're the same. And so that's that love that comes up from within me. And it's about all of those things. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I tried.
Great, thank you. And I
Okay.
do want to say just one more thing to Ingrid, specifically everything. I have not the experience of working with her yet, so I can't talk in that way, but I will just say you're very forgiving because my book was supposed to come out in September. And she's like, oh, take your time, don't worry. Because she's so busy with all of you.
Yeah, I'm very busy, so it's worked out well, I think. I have projects queued up. I'm very fortunate, very grateful to have a lot of work. It's a wonderful thing. And I don't mind. We produce Cindy's book when it's ready and we have a date to work towards and we have time to do it exactly as it should be. So I'm glad of that. Everything seems to be falling into place in its right time with the.
But we have to be careful because someday you're going to be on the fame list, very famous, and then we're all going to be in trouble.
I'm sure you'll be there with me, Cindy. All of my other clients and the team. So yeah, you know, so it's yeah, exciting times. You know, thank you.
Good luck. Books, can we get our books in our carts yet? Is that available or no? We have to wait till September 1st.
Sorry, can we get the we're not doing pre-orders.
Okay. I
So
have to get
launch day. It's all about the launch day. Yeah, but it's going to be, there's be a Kindle version and a paperback version on Amazon. It's all ready to go. So yeah, very exciting. Does anybody else want to add anything before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say congrats to you both and Jeff. And I'm nowhere near writing a book, but what I'm curious to understand, one is from Ingrid, you're not specific to any style of writing, so fiction, non-fiction, you do all publishing, is what I'm getting.
Potentially, yes. So far, I've only published poetry, which is one of those ironies. I'm called Experiments in Fiction. I'm publishing poetry. But I like the name, so I don't see any reason to change it. I would like to publish fiction as well. I write a lot of poetry myself. I move within those circles, but I'm open to other projects, whether they be fiction, perhaps more memoirs. So lots of scope there, but it will be creative side, you know, rather than factual things that I'm interested in.
Okay. And then I guess question for both Jeff and yourself. So in terms of, I guess I have to get the book, but in terms of the structure of the book, have you broken it up with little illustrations or photos or things like that? I had to get the book, I think. The surprise. I had to wait for the surprise. Just to understand I guess I'm a very visual person, so just it naturally.
It's actually quite a short book. So once you get inside, you know, we have the logo, we have some quotes. Jeff introduces his poetry, and then we have the poems speak for themselves. They're all in the words, but yeah.
Okay, all right then.
a good question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Which
you.
Thank you,
That
Bella.
brings me to the question of pictures, because I think pictures are really valuable and I would love those, but I think they add too much to your book price wise. Is that true?
If it was going to be a kind of glossy coffee table style book, then yes. If
Got
not,
it.
then my issue might be how the quality of those images is going to come across. I did include some illustrations in the Anthropocene hymnal, but it was, I don't even know how to say that word, you know, it's not a word I hear people say out loud, but there we go. They were pencil drawings, so that was okay. And I think sort of line drawings you can maybe get away with here and there. But if you look, most books, most poetry books, there's scope to have illustrations, but there's plenty of images within the text as well. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to compromise the quality of the book by having images that would print in poor quality. Interesting question about integrating images with the text.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't work so much on Kindle. I think I like when if I go, I'm not much of a poetry person myself so much, but when I go into like Waterstones or any bookshop and you look at some poetry books and they might have a few pictures, but it would not maybe work for Kindle, because then Kindle can be different formats, different shapes and stuff. But it's just I guess it with me, I would think about pictures, but it's for my learning now that, you know, print ink costs. So it's, you know, it's something that I wouldn't have thought of, but yeah, it's something to consider. And then, you know, your words do, your poetry words, you know, I read Jeff's poems and they're just lovely. You can, you know, you visualize it, you know, you go with the flow and you visualize it all. But it's just, I guess, just thinking of the physical book different, Kindle different. This is just me in my mind.
No, it resonates with me perfectly, Bella, because as you know, and actually all of you would know in different ways, and you might not know this fact that's about to come out of my mouth, but I spend a lot of time when it comes to WordPress, Twitter, and Instagram on pictures. I mean, sometimes a poem for me will come out within me in 5 minutes or something like that. And I might spend a half an hour looking for a photo for those platforms. But what's interesting, and the distinction that I created when Ingrid and I started to, you know, have our conversation and things move forward with the book, I never considered having pictures in the book. It was never something that ever even like arose within me. So it's a really interesting question to me as far as from a self-reflective perspective. And I think that, well, that's all I think for today. So I appreciate the question immensely. So thanks, Bella.
Bella and Cindy. Anybody else have any questions before we wrap up?
I have one last question. So first off, I would like to say that the cover of your book is beautiful. The poems that you read are beautiful, and I love the title. So I was wondering, was it a challenge to come up with the title and how the cover of the book should be? Did you do it after you wrote your poems, or did you go in wanting to write, you know, about that theme?
It's a great question, Camelia. Thanks for asking. And it happened all at the same time. Like I created the distinction between what was in that previous concept and idea, and then what was going to be. And I knew it would be in nature because, well, 99% of my poems have something to do with nature. And as I started to write some of those poems is when the title came, and it actually changed, I think, once before I sent it to Ingrid for the official time. And I don't even remember what it was. And so they coincided pretty closely together, the official title of what it is today, and then the poetry. And of course, when I got clear on the title, meaning I just was like, okay, this is it. And I sent it to Ingrid and she resonated with it right away. then more poetry came at that point too, and just collecting poems and putting them in and taking them out, and you know, all of that creative process of choosing what was going to go in and what was going to come out. And then the pictures, I think I had sent Ingrid, I think I sent you 4 or 5 different pictures. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Something like that. And that one that we chose for the cover is in my house. And it's a picture that resonates pretty deeply within me. I love the coast, the sea. No matter where I am at in the world, I want to go see it and just be with it. It reminds me of human beingness. Just the waves remind me of breathing. It's just like how it works for me. And so that's what we went with. And when Ingrid asked me to look for some designs for cover, she mocked up several different things, and this one was just the one that was like, yeah, that's it. That's the one. I remember showing it to a colleague and they said, not those other ones, that one. And so it was just really clear from the first time I saw it, actually, that was it. And so, yeah, thanks, Camelia, and thanks for being here today too. That was a great question. That was fun.
You're welcome, and thank you for hosting this session. And thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you.
Welcome.
A good question.
Yeah.
I don't.
Hi, Marion.
Hi. Afternoon, everybody. I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to just input that I found it fascinating hearing how you've how the book gestated and the process that you went through, and how you started in one place and found yourself going to another place. That fascinates me, how you had a group of poems to begin with, but actually you discarded those and looked at it afresh and came in somewhere different. It's just lovely hearing you talk about it and the whole process. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Marion. That was so lovely of you to say. I find that, and I don't know how all of you find this, but I find that my poetry continuously iterating, like just constantly changing. And sometimes, like, I have poems at home that will probably never see the blog, which is the blog, Twitter, and Instagram are primarily where I'm engaged in poetry. And because I look at them and I'm like, no, that's not it, because my poetry's already changed. It's the wildest thing to be inside of. And some of you may know that some of my poems now are much shorter, because it's like, I don't know, it's just, that's what's happening. They're coming up a little shorter. But anyway, I appreciate that acknowledgement. Thank you very much. It's very kind.
It's lovely to hear, Marion. Thank you. Anybody else before we leave?
I just have to write a poem down now because it just came. I'm like, okay, get your notes. That's how it works.
Yeah, that's how it works.
It is, sometimes these ideas come and you have to catch them before they go away.
Well, thank you guys, everybody, for that.
Look forward to reading it, Cindy. Yeah.
No, it went a line. It was what Jeff said. It was the way you breathed life into my dreams. That's all I have.
That's good.
Place to
That's
start.
fun.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah, I think it's been a brilliant discussion and been lots of valuable insights. We've got to hear some of Jeff's wonderful poetry. You all know about the book, 1st of September. Show it again. So very excited for launch day. Keep your eyes on the blogs and the Twitter and Instagram for more announcements. And thank you all so much for coming and showing your support. It's been great to have you here.
Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Jeff.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yay, all the
Congratulations.
And
Congratulations,
Ingrid,
Jeff.
Oh, thank you.
Collaborative.
Thank you, thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, really. Thank you.
So great to work with you. So I'm going to end the meeting. I'm going to get this on YouTube as soon as possible. So if you want to watch it back, I'll put it up on the blog as well. So thank you all once again, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.